Ashtavakra Gita, chapter 1, verse 14. Dear child, long have you been caught in the bonds of identification with the body? Sever it with the sword of knowledge. I am intelligence, and be happy. The sage is saying, you have been caught in the bonds of identification with the body for a long time. Why is the sage saying long time? We need to observe here. From the time the child is born, what is the child getting identified with? Let's see. First, the baby will cry, right? Why will the baby cry? When the baby feels uncomfortable or hungry or tired. What is all this? Isn't it all related to the body? And also, the sage is saying long because it is the habit of the mind to follow the patterns. And these patterns have been driving us with or without our knowledge. Still getting caught with the same identification. That's what he meant. If you carefully see, your problems might seem different, but the source of these would be from the similar pattern. The sage is saying long for this. The mind keeps bringing the same pattern in different ways. The sage is telling us to identify this bondage and reject all which is false. Again, like we check in every verse, let's start from where we are. We do this experimentation with all the verses, right? In case you have not listened to the other verses, I have added the playlist link in the description, which consists of all the verses. Okay. When we say identification of the body, for whom is this identification? For the ego, correct? Ego doesn't have an image. Like if I say that, where is your ego? You can't point it like this is where it is, right? It needs a body to get identified with, right? It needs someone to enact it, right? The sage is telling us, with the sword of knowledge, cut this loop of identification, which is manifesting in different patterns. And when the sage says word of knowledge, it's not some knowledge of book or scriptures. When sage says knowledge or meditation, it just means truthful enquiry to reject the false. Cut this loop of identification with this sword of knowledge. Okay. Ego says something with some identification. Just cut it with the sword of knowledge. This sword of knowledge won't accumulate or acquire anything. It just cuts. When the sage uses these words, we'll have to see this carefully. This knowledge, I am the intelligence, it's not acquiring anything. We saw this even in the previous verse. This is very much connected to it, right? This intelligence is beyond knowing and not knowing. It's not to accumulate. It's just to cut whatever false has been accumulated. So, because the truth doesn't need to be created. Truth is always there. So to identify this, just cut the false. Whatever false has been accumulated has to be removed. All the concepts that has been accumulated has to be removed. That is when you are free. The ego says, I am the body. And sage is saying us to be aware of the truth. He's saying you are the intelligence, not this body. And when the sage says intelligence, it is not one more identity on top of few others that we will be having. It is to remove all of them. That is where he is giving that cut, 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 cut all this faults that has been accumulated. And he's saying, be happy. We have seen in the previous verses also where he has mentioned this, be happy. So it is an opportunity for us to see whenever the sage says, be happy, he wants us to be liberated from the suffering and attachments. And that's the reason he's saying, be happy. It's not some state of happiness that has to be attained. Just being free from suffering and attachment.